Well, welcome back, and we are here now at the regular meeting for the Utility Advisory Committee. And so I don't mind doing it again. It just, since we've done the Pledge of Allegiance once today, should we do it again? It's on the agenda. So, okay, we'll just do the Pledge of Allegiance again. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so I guess make sure I'm Brittany, make sure I'm understanding correctly. We've got public comment. That's first, but usually the public comment is on the agenda, and if we pull an agenda item, should that be? No, it's not. You do a public comment. Okay, just thank you. Okay, so then we will open the public comment period. Again, the number is okay, and you're gonna make me memorize the number. Okay, thanks. 702-589-9629. Okay, and one last time, the call-in number is 702-589-9629. Okay, well, let's go ahead and proceed with the agenda items. Okay, so due to clarification issue, and we need to pull number 2 and agenda item number 2, so we did not put down the proper definition of what the public would expect for us to be doing on that. So we need to move that to another item and another meeting. And so I guess on number 7, when we're talking about future agendas, then we'd try to make sure we word that correctly. Was that, Brittany, would that be?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Utility Advisory Committee members. Brittany Walker, Acting City Attorney here for Boulder City. For purposes of open meeting law, agenda items do need to be clear and complete. So when the committee is proposing to take an action, the agenda item needs to very specifically state what the nature of that action is. Here on item 2, the action is not adequately described to be clear and complete for open meeting law purposes, so staff has recommended removal of this agenda item, and it can be placed on an agenda for a future meeting.
Yeah, I guess the best thing we can do is in discussion on the future agenda item, we can just try to clarify it.
That's correct.
Can you be there for that so we can find out what the problem was?
Well, the agenda items just have to clearly state what the action is. So if there is an action, a recommendation to City Council, if there's whatever the action would be, the agenda item has to just clearly state what that action is proposed to be.
Okay, thank you. So, and just so clarification too, there will be no motion on number 4 and no motion on number 6. So if we need to do a motion on number 6 in the future, we'll have to reword that one also. So just to make sure, and so when we get to number 4, I'll clarify that, but it's going to be a pretty brief aspect. Okay, so right now, the minutes, trying to figure out the best way to go about this since we've, I guess, limited a few things. We can take a little more time. I didn't want to take a whole lot of time after the long day. Eileen and I went over these minutes and found quite a few things that have to be changed. A few or more than just a few words. So Josh, did you happen to bring the Word document, or what can we do to, so we suggest some things to be changed? Instead of just reading it out and then you have to pull it off the, write it down or pull it off the, I can give you my copy, I guess, but just trying to find out the easiest way to work it.
I didn't bring the Word document, but if you already have it like striked out and like what you can just give them to me at the end of the meeting and I'll get those updated for you.
Okay, well, my writing isn't the best, so
No, that's fine. I'll
hopefully you
figure
can
it
read
out.
it. So,
So should we just pull that from the agenda
well,
and
that's a
bring it
good,
back?
that's a good
next
question.
time?
Do you want me to give you what I've got and then you put it in and then we do it, or do you want to discuss it?
This is a meeting for a vote. You can either take and say that we can accept the Utility Advisory Committee meeting minutes for March 29th with revisions that are recommendations that are required. But then the problem is now it's secretive because you don't know what revisions and recommendations.
Oh, no,
have
no,
been done.
this wasn't the intent that we would do it secretly. Everything I do, I try to do above the board. So if I was going to give them something, it wasn't something we weren't going to bring back to the committee. But right now,
But let's go ahead and table it for the next meeting.
or I can read it out. I can read what I've got, because this meeting actually is going to end up being pretty short right now. So,
We've got the attorneys can advise us on it, the open meeting law. But
okay,
like I said, I got no problem voting on it on the next meeting.
that would be great to see what the way it is. I've got several comments. A few of them are sentences that just, when I read them out, make sure nothing gets lost.
So there are proposed changes to the minutes that you have provided?
No, I have not provided, because I will provide that I will need to
Okay.
suggest.
Yeah, I mean, the only way to do it would be to go through them verbally. If they're not too many, if they're very extensive, we would need to review them. Are they just typos, or?
No, some of them are very substantial.
I
At
think
least a few
staff
that
would
are-
still need to review them. Yeah, so we'd have to, I think, roll that to another meeting. Have to provide that. We can't, but to incorporate them in the minutes so that all the committee members have them ahead of time and an opportunity to review.
Okay, but
There
let
hasn't
me
been-
just give you an example of one of the ones that's majorly important, is that, okay, so on the regular meeting last time, we were talking about for possible action, discussion of the utility operational and maintenance budget. One thing got reversed that was definitely wrong, has to be changed, is that, Mrs. Marion stated that the enterprise fund should pay for themselves. She stated there is no law that utilities cannot support the general fund. I went back to the video, and actually, it's just the exact opposite. There is no law that the general fund can't support the utility fund. That has to be reversed. So it's not just a matter of us making a recommendation, it has to be changed.
Yeah, if there's substantial substantive edits, I think that this should be just submitted and then brought back before the committee and where it's, so everyone can see the changes and.
Okay, and then,
Yeah.
so the best thing in the future then is because these are PDFs, so I guess.
The best thing in the future is if you do see those changes, to go ahead and submit those to staff and let us know that.
Get them until they're published,
Yeah, I mean, but that's when you,
so we got these last Thursday.
Mm-hmm,
So it's too late for them to change it for this meeting anyway.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, if there's major substantive edits that have to be made, I think that we have to have more time so that we can incorporate those into the packet so that everybody has a copy, everybody understands what they are. If no one has a copy right now, then the committee can't vote on it.
Okay, that,
Yeah.
I just, again, trying to clarify
Yeah.
what we need to do. So would this be red line strikeout, or would this just be changes and then everybody reads it and says if they agree with it, we just vote on it? So with the new changes.
Well, what we would do is once you give those to staff, is we would redline them so you can see, or we would probably watch the video and just correct it and bring back corrected minutes before you, but we just have to do that on the staff level.
Okay,
Does that make sense? Yeah, we have to do that on the staff level and then bring it back with those corrections.
okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, the agenda was posted, what, a week ago or something? Or why are we being told this now during the meeting?
It's just been brought to our attention that there were substantive changes to the minutes.
No, I mean the whole thing, like you're revising it seems like most of the agenda is going out of the window, right? So, and why are we being told this now rather than when the agenda was posted, or even before?
The clear and complete issues were brought to my attention today.
Yeah, and who brought them to your attention then?
Mr. Ree, we have to comply with open meeting law. Timing
Don't disagree with that.
doesn't necessarily dictate whether we have to comply with open meeting law. I understand that the Utility Advisory Committee wants to do its business, and you will, and the agenda is very much in a manner that you have several items you can act upon.
So you're not going to tell me why you're telling us during the meeting. If you don't want to tell us, that's okay. I mean, I don't know. Of course we want to comply with the open meeting law. You know, obviously I'm not denying that. But I just don't understand why we've been doing this for 2 years. Why all of a sudden you show up without any heads up and say, oh, well, you have to strike these items. And you're saying you're not going to tell me, right, if I understand correctly?
It's one item, first of all.
Well, there's the minutes, and then there was another one.
The minutes are only being asked to be pulled because the committee has substantive edits that there's only one copy of at this time. So
That's one item. What's the
so
next
it's
item?
not possible for the committee to properly review these minutes at this time. Staff would recommend that you provide those changes to us so that we can bring them back when all the committee members can properly review them and take action on something that they've properly reviewed and had time to review.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I'm just surprised at the manner in which it's happening. I mean, it seems to me a bit odd that you show up at the meeting. It's useful for us to have a heads up because we're up against deadlines and timing, and you're not telling me why you're showing up at the meeting. Why not give us a heads up? I mean, I'm vice chair. Don't you think the vice chair would be entitled to know if there's a problem with the agenda? Or it was brought to your attention. How? I mean,
I've already answered your question, Mr. Ree.
you don't want to tell me.
I have answered your question.
Okay, well, can you provide us your reasons in writing? Are you willing to do that? You can say no, as you're not on trial. I mean, you're a staff official. Can you provide me in writing with your reasons for these actions?
Mr. Ree, this is a recorded public meeting.
So you're not willing to give me in writing your reasons for what you're doing today? This seems like a reasonable question. I'm not looking for a fight. I'm not looking for a confrontation. I'm just saying you're asking us to remove items from the agenda. Can you give us a reason in writing? That's all. Is that so unreasonable, you think? Or?
Greg?
Thank you.
Really quick, the agenda and this these documents were assembled and handed out on Thursday. Okay, Friday they're off, Saturday they're off. You can't talk about it on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday because it has to be issued 5 days before the meeting per open meeting law. Now, the problem is because there's only one document of the changes required for the March 29th Utility Advisory Committee meeting, the substantive changes have to be sent back to the city who dictated and wrote up the minutes that they've reversed or transposed some key elements in the meeting. We can't discuss that at this meeting because we're looking for approval of the minutes in this meeting, not a rewrite of the document. Okay, the same thing if we go a little farther, we're going to find out there's probably some changes, and you can just nod your head, Larry, or not. On the April 7th meeting that we're going to be voting on to approve. We can't make meeting changes if they're substantial at this meeting before we vote on it, because you're talking about a rewrite by a city employee that nobody else has seen. And that's all that's going on as item number 2, which is the second item they're looking at. It just says for possible action to discussion. We are not in that area to be able to discuss that right now because it was not defined as to what we're discussing. Benefits, wages, working conditions, what is it?
I don't disagree with any of that. I'd like to hear it from them because it's legal advice that we're being given. And it's good to get a second opinion sometimes and see, if another lawyer who would look at this would agree, AKA, the Attorney General's office. Maybe they don't agree with you. But if I go, well, what did they tell you? And they say, well, they didn't say anything. They just told us to strike the thing without saying why.
I want to clarify that on item 1, you don't necessarily have to roll it. You are welcome to discuss your changes to the minutes. I would just recommend against approving the minutes because they're not before you. So you are absolutely welcome to go through your changes to the minutes and discuss what you think should be changed, so that that's clear on the record. I think that'd be productive. But because the minutes, if there's substantial edits, I would want the committee members to know exactly, have it right before them so that they're voting on something and understand what's being voted on. So please do walk through your changes to the minutes.
No, thank you. I think you're correct. It's because some of it, if it was just a word or two that helped with it, then it would be easier. That was the reason I brought the situation up, and I didn't mean to be adversarial about it. I just meant to be trying to understand since they were more substantial. In the past, we had made some, and it got confusing. And so if we could do it on the screen, it makes sense. For me to just walk through it without doing it, it's not going to work. So I appreciate it, and I think that's the best way, most likely. Well, what it's going to have to be is March 29th and April 7th. I'll give my comments. Ellen will give her comments to Josh. We'll have them do it. People can read it the next time around, and we can go forward. So, but I think that's probably the best way. If we have any substantial changes, we can try to catch it early if we can. Because now if we got it to you by Monday, could you put it in the packet? Can it be put in the packet? So if we saw it on Thursday, made our changes through the weekend, and made a copy, got a copy in by Monday, would that be doable?
Yes, I mean, and just so you know, I work on weekends. So, the other committees that I staff, if there are things that need to be done, I work on a Saturday or Sunday to get them done. If you got us edits to the minutes ahead of time, we do our best to get them incorporated before the meeting if we can. Minutes are the official record of the actions of the board or committee. And just so you know, not necessarily a record of everything that was said. That said, the summaries do need to be accurate about what was represented to be said. But yes, if you review the minutes prior to the meeting, we do our best to get them in the packet completed because we have timelines that we have to get those minutes before you. So we're getting them to you as soon as we can too. So you can notify the staff in advance of the meeting, and this would allow us to provide a new version prior to approval. And again, we would try to do that before the meeting if we can. Obviously, if we can't, we physically can't, but we do our best to do that.
No, thank you. And it's just, this time was a little different too, so we were just trying to, I think Eileen and I both didn't get till late either, so, because it was misunderstanding. But, no, it was just two of us, so there was no open meeting law violation with the two of us looking at it together. But like I said, I think that tonight there are substantial changes. Eileen or I will give the changes to Josh, get the changes, input, and we'll just put it on for the next meeting. Next
good.
regular meeting.
Yes, and again, if the committee would like to go through the changes, you're absolutely welcome to do that.
Okay, I appreciate it. I guess I would prefer not to do it tonight then. And I think I'm seeing most of the committee members would not, so. Okay, so then we're removing item number 2, and we'll go to item number 3 then. So I'm sorry, Dennis, that you were, I just want to make sure that you weren't waiting because I was asking for you to start.
So this is the update on the utility funds capital projects. I'm just going to hit on a few highlights. We are starting to expedite a few projects that are in the prioritization loop or timeframe, if you will. So we're going to start putting some additional overtime on the design side into the projects that are required to make sure that we meet the schedule with when we need to make the upgrades to Substation 3, that whole timeline of events that we've talked about with the capital plan. And since some of these got behind schedule a little bit, we're just putting more energy and effort onto those ones with the higher priorities. With regards to Arizona Street Feeder project, that project's on schedule. And it's moving along fairly well. The other project that is a significant one, obviously, is the BC Tap to Buchanan overhead. You can go out there and see where there've been potholing and locating and identifying pole locations. Most of that work is from the BC Tap to Substation 3 initially. We're trying to schedule most of the work between Substation 3 and Buchanan during the summer while there's no school going on, just to avoid those issues there. But we anticipate that project to be completed into September, right? So, and that one really completes the main loop of the 69 kV, and then of course the associated substations and feeder projects will come in line as well. And wasn't planning on going through all of these because I know we're going to talk about some of the more of the schedules at the next meeting when we get Carol's updated report. Just a quick FYI on a couple of sewer projects. We've completed the Evaluate the Hemingway Valley Sewer. And that title is a little bit deceptive because we evaluated the Hemingway Sewer as well as the main interceptors going into the treatment plant over the hill as well. That draft evaluation and model is completed. It has identified a potential issue with the sewer closer down towards the wastewater treatment plant. That could be a concern in the future, just because of capacity issues. But we're going to have to do some future evaluation and some flow monitoring, because when you do these models, you use design criteria that is somewhat conservative. But even when we backed off that conservative design criteria and just used something closer to a per capita wastewater flow number that resembles what we think it is in Boulder City, it still shows that there could be a potential capacity issue in the future. Good news is it's not immediate because we're not growing that fast, as you all know. But we really need to do some flow monitoring at the lift stations and at some of the specific locations downstream closer to the plant where some of the major interceptor sewers come into play. So that's something we'll start in July to get some flow monitoring.
So is that down on Veterans Memorial, or is that on Buchanan or Georgia? Or?
It's mostly coming down Buchanan and then down into the plant
So where those come together.
The
pipes
About full, in other words?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And the D over D, which is a term, I know it's an engineering terminology, is typically where you would start to be concerned, but again, it's, you use that criteria to decide when you need to start working on an upgrade. I don't see that happening anytime soon, but I don't want to underestimate or overestimate if and when it needs to be done. And we've never done any real-time flow monitoring that I'm aware of, so we need to do that first.
Did we fix the bottleneck at Georgia and Buchanan with the sewer realignment?
That's my understanding.
It's done?
That's done. That was done before I got here.
Okay, because on the schedule that we had, capital projects from about 6 months ago or so, it was on there and now it's gone, so I didn't know if it had been fixed.
Yeah, no, I think that was
It was
done.
on our color brochure showing the Buchanan, Georgia sewer line realignment.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, just the modeling work that's been done, that didn't show up. So we could have to take a look at that.
So that, the pipe is okay, it's not deteriorating or?
Well, there are some issues on that pipeline going down Buchanan,
Already.
but most of them are manhole rehab
Okay.
items that are already scheduled in here.
Okay.
And then, the last but not least, we just received a draft of the landfill expansion plan, phasing plan. We'll be meeting with and that phasing plan is the one I've discussed before, we're modifying the plan so that we don't have to go as high as originally planned, at least not in the near future, meaning not in 50 years. Once we get to 100 years, you may have to go up that upper level, but the goal is to keep it at a lower level to keep trash from flying around and the wind messing with it. And so as part of that phasing plan, we're also phasing in the perimeter road and the fencing and everything that will come out of that. So we'll meet with the operator as well as the Southern Nevada Health District in the next month or so and make sure everybody's comfortable with that plan and then move forward.
Are we having to line the next cell that we're getting ready to dig out?
Mm-mm.
So in other words, we can dig down as far as we want, use that for top cap, and then turn around and when we get down to a certain point, we can start
Right.
utilizing it.
Right, so we can remove that and use it for cover, which actually is better, because you might as well go down and get the cover material, because we have to cover the trash every night.
Well, the reason I was asking, because I got told that they're going over to the gun range and pulling soils piles out of the gun range to put the cover on the landfill.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, well, it might be something to be looked at kind of on the side. I heard they're running trucks over there to the gun range to pull soil out of there to make their cap for their landfill, and I said, well, you should be just digging the hole deeper. And they
So,
kind of gave me a shoulder shrug.
well, right now they're going on the previous approved phasing plan with
Yeah.
the health district. So once we get through the health district with this plan, they can start moving forward on it.
Yeah, because they're getting pretty close to the edge of that west side. All right, thank you.
I think, since it's still, I'm not sure how much we're gonna talk about budget for a couple meetings, so just for the future aspect, because it's still part of the ongoing program. So for the landfill, we have a make sure I'm understanding the two reserves that are there. There's the land closure restructure, which is gonna be when it's closed at the end of its lifespan. I completely understand that one.
Right.
The construction one is actually like a capital fund, right?
It's like a capital fund.
So would that could be used to, so this, actually, you're showing that all three, and by the way, thank you for this, you got the status of, that's showing that rollover, it's gonna roll over into the next year is what we're looking at, right?
Right.
And then the percentages, I really appreciate those additions. So all three are gonna be rolled over, so it'll be into 22. I think at this time, we don't have any budget for 22, and there wasn't any offset, like voter stuff for it, but the offset would be the construction, and I'm not sure, that's one thing that's been shown, is that the construction reserve can be used or should be used for this.
Should be used, yeah, we can make sure we do that. And the other thing, just to give the committee a heads up, is we're trying to see if we can make that phasing plan work where
The operator would actually construct that road as they go and do the fencing as well. And so this potentially could come off of this plan. But we're leaving it here until we know enough to be able to answer that question.
And maybe some of it doesn't necessarily hurt, because it just keeps us understanding that there is work being done out there.
And they have one of their metal buildings out there, the manufactured buildings out there it's ours. That's in pretty bad shape, so I think we're gonna have to start looking for a replacement on that in the upcoming years. And so these funds might be able to be used for that.
Okay.
We just don't have that answer yet either, so.
Okay.
And last but not least, we've been talking about the Headworks project, the upgrade at the treatment plant, which is the S2004. Originally, that was going to be just some what we hoped would be minor upgrades that got a little more complicated, and the decision was made to go do a full bar screen replacement based on our analysis. We were headed down that road. We've taken a pause, just hopefully for a short period, and thank you, Larry, for signing a letter for us from the committee, but we rapidly had to get some information to Washington, D.C., so we're hoping that we can secure a grant and do the bar screen as well as a grit removal system. So it may just delay us a little bit. I don't think it's going to be a big delay. Once we get notification of a yes or no, that'll help us make the decision on what we're going to do. If it's just the bar screen, that's already covered in this budget. We'll purchase it, or we'll order it, purchase it, and put it in ourselves.
Hang on, what did it say in the letter then exactly? Or?
It was just a letter of support.
But we never discussed it, right?
No.
Isn't that an open meeting law issue? Or?
So when you do these type of grant requests, oftentimes, whether it's a bureau or a EPA or what type of grant it is, they just want letters of support from the mayor. The mayor did one for us, acting city manager, Larry did one for us, just to try to secure that grant. It doesn't.
Good timing over there. But aren't we supposed to discuss these things? I mean, if a letter's sent on behalf of the committee?
It wasn't sent on the behalf of the committee. It was just a letter signed by the chair.
Well, that seems a bit odd to me. Maybe, again, I'm the only one who finds that. So it's just Larry personally said he approved independent of us.
Yeah, it wasn't from the committee.
But it was by virtue of his...
I guess I'm trying to understand what your concern is. I mean, we're hoping to secure a grant. We didn't have the time to put this issue and item in front of at a meeting.
No, but we're just being lectured on the open meeting law that everything's got to be done by the book and things are taken off the agenda. Now you're telling us, meanwhile, letters are being...
Securing a letter of support from one member of you is not an open meeting law issue.
Okay, maybe I'm the only one who sees that as a bit iffy. I mean, it's by virtue of him being chair. He's not as a citizen.
And because I guess if it was, then it was an issue with the city council as well. Because we also got a letter of support from the mayor, and there were no concerns. So I just don't think it's a concern.
Okay.
My daddy used to have a saying, OPM, use other people's money. If you
That's what we're trying to do.
If you got a grant that's waving in front of you and you got a timestamp on it, you can get it however you can.
This was a time stamp of a couple of days, so hopefully we are able to get the grant. If not, we'll still be able to proceed with the bar screen purchase.
I think it's a good move.
Yeah, there was nothing in the letter that stated the committee did this or that.
No.
It's just a thing of appreciation. So there was nothing. I didn't sign anybody's life away. It's fully on me if there's any issues. So
And there is no issue. So I'd be more than happy to share that letter with all of you if you'd like to see it.
Well, if it's not relevant to the meeting, then to our committee's work, then I don't have to see it.
No, I was just letting you know.
Mr.
I was just letting you know we're trying to get a grant and improve that project.
Yeah,
That's all.
Mr. Director, do we have an update on the grant for the water meters?
We have not heard anything back yet.
Okay, because I know we started with electrical, then water, and went to sewer. So I figured we'd get an update on that.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything back yet. I'm not sure if we even have a date of.
I know
when we
Josh
should
did I know
anticipate.
Josh filled out the documents.
He
What
did all
was
the
it?
work.
Was it for 75,000?
It was for 75,000 and then we would match 75,000.
So that's another thing that stretches our utility fund money that, you know, we're trying to work in the background.
And that's pretty much all I have to report on this time.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's what we were, we're asking to keep it on. It just allows us
Yep.
to get some update. So we understand that, you don't have to go through all the ones every time, but it just helps us to keep informed. Did anybody else have any comments or questions or anything?
Yeah, I had a question on the Arizona Street feeder project, because there's something happening on Arizona Street involving, Greg tried to explain it to me, but that's not the Arizona Street feeder project that's happening right now over there, right?
It's directly related because it's going into where substation 1 is.
No, that's what I thought, but I'm asking Dennis.
Yeah, that's the Arizona.
That whole area is part of the Arizona.
It goes all the way from Nevada way to the shop.
That's what I thought, but it says under there, 100% on design, out to bid, no construction yet, blah, blah, so,
On the Arizona feeder, there's 1.9 encumbered.
maybe I'm looking at I was on, is this the March 31st spreadsheet? Is that what's, maybe I'm out of date.
Yeah, March 31st. So you see the BC, it's UE 182.
Right, it says in yellow, 100% on design if I'm looking. No construction yet, combined E1904, is that, do I have the wrong document or something? On the document I have,
Yeah, I must be looking at something different.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about, George.
It's, yeah.
I-
Was there something new, was there construction started in March or in
Oh, yeah.
in April?
No, before March.
Really?
Yeah, it's been going on for a month and a half.
So is that memo incorrect? That's next to it?
Yes, that is incorrect.
I guess I want to make sure we correct whatever's, but I'm not
Okay,
getting.
well, then go ahead, George.
If you
let me
will
take
shout
them
to
on.
me, we can get it.
I
corrected.
think we have the same spreadsheet.
Yeah, we do.
I'm going crazy again.
So, do you
I'm
have
going
one?
crazy because I can't see it, but.
I gotta
maybe just
stop
when-
doing this.
Maybe when we're just done here, you can hand me that.
No, it's
Make sure
clear,
we're
it's the
correct.
yellow, it's highlighted in yellow, that's why I saw it.
It's the third yellow.
On feeder Arizona Street, it says no construction yet, design out to bid. When I talked to the guy this morning, he said, no, that's what we're doing a feeder to sub one.
Do you have the
I must
copy?
have the wrong one.
Yeah, do you have it, it might be on the Howard's table, Dennis, if you wanna look at where Howard was gonna set, cause I'm sure there was a copy there. And then you'll see the same thing that we have, and I think there's two of them that says there's no construction, and you just said there was construction.
Not true.
I think this is just notes for us so that we remember that we had to combine some projects. If you remember, we had to amend that budget when it went to city council. So some
Sure.
funds went from some of these other projects, that's why, if I'm remembering correctly. So, yeah, it's just comment we leave on there so we know where, because it didn't, if you remember right, that we were short on budget. So we moved
Yeah.
some money from
No, I
some other
believe you.
projects. So that's what that is. And I'm sorry, yeah, I had a different.
Because this is my point, that it would help to actually label on the boards where the work's being done, which project it is. I asked them this morning, what are you guys doing? And they said, that's what we're doing. And I said, well, that looks awfully like this, where it says, but that's fine, it's just a mistake. I believe that. I mean, let's just delete the yellow thing then, or correct it, or whatever.
We just need to get the part that says not out to bid and no construction. Yeah. Minor detail. Well, yeah. No, thank you for noting that.
I think the same thing on looking at the Buchanan one, you say that there's no construction yet.
That's what I was gonna say. They got a couple holes punched with concrete in them, so that needs to be corrected also.
Yeah, so just,
Right.
Boulder City Tapley Buchanan Overhead Line 1, E2001.
So, yeah, normally you guys only get this piece, so it doesn't have the notes. You can have the notes, I don't care,
Yeah,
but
well, they're helpful.
as
so-
long as we got them corrected.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
Yeah.
Because it shows the percentages and the rollover, so that's helpful. So now we can use both of the tables that you'll give us the next
Right.
time, and we understand it's
Right.
every other month, but this percentage will keep us.
Yep. Anyway, okay, any other questions? Okay.
Okay, so we will close agenda item number 3 and go to agenda item number 4. So I think just quickly again, there was just a miscommunication on how that was needed to be worded. So it wasn't worded. I think I was anticipating a motion, and since it wasn't worded in the proper sense, we can't do a motion or any vote on it. So make sure I'm not saying anything wrong, Dennis, since I didn't write any notes down. Basically what Dennis will do is he will take the feedback from our workshop and whatever is that can legally be done or agreed upon from our feedback will then go to council, but there will be no vote on it tonight. So if there was any discussion related to resolutions or anything about that we didn't finish, we can talk about that, but no motion or anything can be done.
Just to be clear, so the problem was that we didn't put the final resolutions we're going to vote on in the packet. Is that what the problem is? Or?
Part of it was, that might have been part of the problem, but most of it was I think if we could, we could have probably, so do we need to say that in the future, is that the resolutions were in the workshop packet maybe?
So either that or just attach the same resolutions, which I think is probably the safest. Even if there's
Okay.
been commentary during the workshop, at least it was there for the public.
Okay,
So that was part of it, you're right, George. And then the other part was, there needs to be more specific with regards to what the action actually is going to be. So if it's approval of a report, it needs to say that. If it's recommendations from the committee, it needs to say that.
So we would
So
say.
that- So
this
for
item-
possible action, this is what the action's going to
So
be.
what would they want, for example, for this item number 4, so we know in future?
For this item, it kind of depends on what the committee would want. It can be your call, but we would just need to communicate better and be more specific while we're writing the agenda item. So
Okay.
it could be as simple as like the report that Eileen put together, it's approval of the report that's going to city council. The good news is we had the discussion during the workshop, so we can take all the comments and put them into the resolutions unless there's an issue with some of them. And at a minimum, we're going to make sure the rate portion is done because that's got to go with the budget. If we have to bring something back at a later time, we can do that as well.
so I think that, is there anything else that you need from us, Dennis? I think that pretty much covers it, right?
Yeah, no, I think we have all your comments from the meeting, so I think we're good.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on this?
Make sure the verbiage is not transposed.
But when we get to number 7, then we can discuss the future agenda items a little better. I think that's probably the best place to talk about it. So we'll make sure. So, yeah, I'll bring more comments up on 7. Okay, so number 5, update on utility advisory committee member terms presented by staff.
So, yeah, so the terms up in June are George Ree, Ned Chamel, Greg Todd, and Howard Anala. So as I understand it, the clerk's office will be sending out emails, making sure you're do or don't want to be reconsidered for a reappointment, and then eventually that would go to city council for reappointment or appointment of somebody else, depending on how the council votes, and other volunteers that may want to participate. So you should be hearing something from the clerk's office relatively soon for those 4 of you that are up.
Now, what, I guess I'm making sure I understand, because I wasn't even sure when mine came up exactly. Is it the 1st of June or the end of June that we're theoretically?
If you let me pull it up real fast, I got it.
Because it makes sense it'd be the end of June, and we might as well go from fiscal year to fiscal year.
And I know it's got this email. Yeah, I meant to print this out, I forgot to.
So can I ask you, as you're looking, is that part of the, is that a committee, is that part of the charter? Because that's not part of a resolution that explains the dates and stuff.
So the reappointment date for those would be June 1st. Which means it would come up in probably the first meeting in June for reappointment.
And so, but now we're just extending the time until it can be voted on? Is there an issue on that? So if it's not,
Not that I'm aware of, not according to what they're showing for reappointment dates and expiration dates.
but you're saying though that it's actually June 1st, not June 30th?
The expiration is June 1st.
And what's that based on?
This is based on what I got from the clerk's office, so I'd have to ask that question.
Okay, because like I said, I don't believe that's in the resolution, so I just so we can understand where to look in the future too.
Hang on a second. Okay, we're in a meeting. We're public comment. If our terms are up June 1st and we have a meeting on June 5th, we cannot vote on anything, so therefore there cannot be a June meeting.
Well, that's why I asked the question, is if
That's a
you're.
good question, so I'll have to get the answer to that. Yeah.
I mean, they would replace us presumably, so.
If our terms are up on June 1st, we're now in May 5th. Our June meeting will be after the 1st, I think, without looking at a calendar. So therefore, our term is expired on June 1st. With 4 members being absent of a 7-unit committee, we can't vote on anything. We're down.
My point is they're going to replace or reappoint us.
Has to be appointed by city council.
Right, but they're going to do that in time, presumably. There wouldn't be a period where the committee's empty.
You want to bet on that?
No?
So that's why I asked earlier, is that, you guys are still in place until you have a chance to vote on it?
Yeah, I think we just need to get some clarification from the clerk's office.
So I guess what I would assume is that.
And the city attorney. Because
Right.
you're voting on an open meeting law, you're going to get in trouble if it isn't right. You
Right,
just
no,
can't, you
I
can't
understand.
extend the term.
We can't even have a meeting, it's not even votes, we can't have a meeting, there's only be 3 of us.
Exactly, so
We
that
can't even have a
that
meeting.
might be something to even take and consider. We go dark in June until we figure this out.
Well, the June was what we were hoping to have the meeting with the city council, because that's the last time we could have early June is when we can have the current city council.
Hey, we've hit the perfect storm. Council has to vote on our appointments. If they can't vote on our appointments, because it's not within the second meeting of the month of May, and that agenda for the 11th has already been put out, so that second meeting agenda has to be put out to vote for for committee members.
Well, I guess if everybody's willing to do it, then what I would say is we'll put it back to the city and ask them, if it's not voted on, are you still active until it's voted on?
Right.
And can you still come? So if you would be available on the 2nd of June, then unless we have a workshop, the city council has a different workshop, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, okay.
But the city's gonna have to contact all of us so we understand
Right.
what's going on.
Yeah,
So the
and
sooner the better.
we'll get some clarity on that.
Okay, appreciate it. But yeah, it would be nice to understand where that's at, because if we don't have that information, this is something that probably, I would think that the email should be like a month or 2 minimum out, so. We were trying to get it on the agenda sooner, but we probably should have had it on the agenda a little bit earlier.
Well, when is the soonest that city council could vote on it or appoint?
Probably the first meeting in June.
So it's too late to get anything for the May
Yeah.
2nd meeting?
I'd have to go back and check the schedule. It's it might be doable
For the 25th?
for the 25th.
Titles are due tomorrow.
Yeah, as long as we get the title in. So I could talk to the clerk about that. That would solve that problem.
Yeah.
But otherwise, though, the attorney, the city council, or
If-
somebody has the authority to say that the acting members can still be active until they're voted on. Somebody
Right.
can
So,
tell us that.
I think Eileen's got a good point. We can get the title in regardless, and even if we don't have the answer right away, and at least have the placeholder for that meeting.
Okay, that's good. I appreciate that. I'm just trying to figure out all the angles.
Yeah, no.
This one seems a
Agree.
confusion. I want to cover as many angles as we can too, because I think the second might be a pretty important meeting, or at least the first week of June, whenever we can get, if we can get the council there, I think that would be a good deal. Okay, was there, any other comments related to the term that anybody, or questions? Or Dennis, did you have any, I'm sorry, did I cut that too quick? Any questions or comments? Dennis,
No.
did you have anything else?
Nothing for me.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so then we'll close that out, and we'll go to number 6. And do we have anything, any major time sensitive issues, scales? We don't really have any drafting of reports right now. The one thing that we can talk in the future agenda item, but I guess we can also talk about here, was that, George, you had talked about I guess we call it a data sheets for the city council. And we were looking at having that in the June meeting. But right now, I think we'll probably put together 2 agendas when we get to the 7, because we have a possibility of a workshop with the council, which would be completely different than even one of our regular workshops, is what I would assume. So maybe we'll put together 2 or 3 agendas that we can find out what's gonna actually happen. So do you want to try to do that in June, or, and then we got another item, can we talk about the possibility, let's see, do we need to talk about, or can we talk about July and August timeframes now, or do we need to put that in the future agenda items? Because we have some issues there, that, if I understood you correctly. Dennis?
Yeah, that would be in the next agenda item.
Okay. So basically, right now, then, I guess we'll just say, what do we have for timescales in the immediate future that we want to work on, that we want to try to get into the agenda items? Okay,
I think from my perspective, we probably want to start working on the IRP in July, but I don't know, we'd have to sit down and look at the schedule to see when it would, draft, we could have a discussion on a draft. It's probably a few months after that, at a minimum, just depending on how much work we need to put into that, or if we just do the effort to update without considering some of the other challenges that we need to address in the longer term with regard to solar and some other things. So we probably could have a draft update IRP that updates everything that's in there, but it may not address all of the concerns we have, if that makes sense.
well, if we do like we did with the water conservation, and we put it into the July agenda, then it's a starting point.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we can put that into item number 7 to get everybody's opinion on how we want to fit that in. But as a timescale, I think everybody agrees that we had agreed in the past that the IRP is something we want to get started reviewing sooner than later. Am I correct on that?
Right.
Okay.
And I think the other one that has a schedule tied to it, as we all know now, or will have a schedule tied to it, is going to be more about discussion and funding for turf removal which will just become a part of the budget process eventually, but we're gonna have to do some work ahead of time to develop those numbers and those site locations and see what it really looks like.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dennis.
So that's
Let
probably
you
in the
finish.
fall.
What's that?
Timeframe? And of course, in the fall, we start the new budget process. So,
Right.
so you'll start seeing those once we get that schedule from finance.
So we've got, I think one of the things just from our last couple discussions, and then we'll fit them into the rate, but I think as far as issues, is, so we want the water conservation, I think we want to keep the rate study, so that will go into, the agenda items, but we also have rates itself. And I think we all agreed that we wanted to start looking at that, because if we want to do it in more of a detailed issue, I think that's going to be several meetings. So if we put the rate, so we say rate review, do we want to put rate review? Is that a way to do it? Because that's, or sort of match what the resolution has. Resolution says the rate will be reviewed every 3 years, so I think the rate review will work.
Okay.
Greg, you had a...
I'm just saying that we've got to fall back, and on the discussion of future agenda items, we have to take and talk about the approval of minutes for March 29th, April 7th, and May 5th. So there's going to be 3 line items on that for possible action, approval of minutes. Okay, then the one we had to take and pull out, or like George is saying, we've got to take and figure out what is the problem, why we can't discuss item 2 legally.
And that will be better discussed on 7, because that's an agenda item. We're talking more of issues. So I think 7 and 6 and 7 blend, but I guess we still probably best to say, call it what issues we want to go forward, and then 7, we can discuss what we want on the future agendas and how we want to word them.
Okay, but as for timescales, I can't think of anything that we owe city council except for what we're talking about is the approval of the 3% reduction on electric and the $10 a month off the service.
And that, so to make sure I'm not saying anything wrong, is that's what we did in number 4. So because we just clarified that they're
Correct.
going to take our recommendations from the workshop, they're going to take our feedback from the workshops.
Yeah, that would be a better term.
And they'll take our feedback, and they're going to present that, whatever is agreed to, on the 25th. So we won't see that again unless they email us something beforehand. And so there is nothing we owe them now, because that's our feedback is the last there is for this go-around.
Yep.
Okay, so, but so if we continue on with ideas, then I guess we can continue with, I think we want conservation, because we're gonna probably need to start thinking about electric too, discussing that in the future. Do we wanna, maybe we'll do that in the fall. Is there any reason we need to do that any sooner than the fall? So.
I can tell you the only thing I'd like us to consider is historically, the rebate programs on the energy side, electrical side, have been coming out of Marvis's budget. And that's kind of the way it evolved. I think we probably need to separate those line items into a separate budget item. Because they're really not maintenance. That's just how the city started doing them. Don't have an answer why. But I think for rebate programs, so as part of the IRP, we'll be talking about those, and we can certainly give the feedback on how much we've spent on the rebate programs, and that'll give us an idea what the annual costs are. But I would just like to separate that out. So that's a future discussion item.
Well, then, I guess so Vega's getting us in trouble, but sometimes if we put down discussion of conservation, that means we can talk about any conservation, or do we say conservation of water and or electric? And that way we can, if there's time and somebody comes something forward, then we can talk. What do we?
I would suggest we make that 2 separate line items, one for water and one for electric.
Okay.
Yep.
No, the resolution was one item.
I'm saying it was an oversight. There's two resolutions, two different resolution numbers, so if we're gonna separate it out as to electric rebates for conservation and water rebates for conservation, it has to be two items for discussion.
Well, rebates, yeah, that's, I guess I was just thinking if we were putting it under conservation. Again, I think there's a lot of things that we can discuss. It's just a matter of, the biggest thing we probably want to be careful on, and then discuss it more next one is any action, especially any motion.
Well, and we'll be more diligent and have discussions directly with the attorney's office once we draft these, so they're comfortable with how they're
Okay,
drafted.
okay. So if there's nothing, so Greg, you hit it right on the nail, there's nothing that we owe anybody right now, if that's the best way to say it. So there's really, we have a little bit of flex time that we want to keep moving forward on the rate study, the resolutions, and then like let's figure out where the data sheet fits in the best, the IRP, the concept. That's still quite a bit. So we'll just see if we can, so then I guess in the next agenda item, we'll talk about where it best fits.
Yep.
So did I miss anything? Did anybody have any, Dennis or I miss anything that is an issue though that needs to be done probably the next 2 to 4 months? Because if we can get it, if we can think about it now, it'd be better to fit it in.
I had something, but I think it's more under 7, so, but it was about, because I'd sent an email to the mayor sort of with my concerns about water, all the stuff I've said, so, and then he said, well, we have plans in place if any of this happens, and then I asked him if I could see the plans, and I didn't get an answer, and he said, we have deals with the solar fields to purchase solar electricity, and I wasn't aware of any of these deals, except with the one with SNWA, and so,
Yeah, there's two.
or 2 with SNW, but well, anyway, it'd be nice to see the documents and what plans there are that he referred to. If there aren't any, it's okay too, but I'd be interested to see those.
We can table that for the next meeting, but there are two documents that have been signed between the city and the providers, and they're on file, part of the city council documents and drafts.
And
Okay, well, but they weren't discussed by us prior to signing.
well, one of them is still in process and we haven't even seen it yet, the one with SNWA, so, yeah, we haven't seen that.
Well, if people don't mind, I wouldn't mind having an agenda item to discuss that and the plans of what if we have no hydro that apparently exist
Yep.
and that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, and I think it would be valuable for this committee in an upcoming meeting. I don't know that we'd be ready in June or July, but to have an overall, briefing for the committee on the solar fields, the history of the fields, what we do and don't have in place with regards to energy, and kind of summarize that for the committee.
Also, these plans that I'm told exist for what happens if, which I'm not aware of, so.
Well, we don't have a plan that says what we're gonna do if we have to replace Hoover, I can tell you that. We don't have that plan. The plan would be to go out and make purchases on the market.
Okay, well, whatever.
If we don't have anything else in place, that's what it would be today. So anyway, we'd have to
If
have
we
that
could
in a
discuss
separate
that at
discussion.
some point, it'd be helpful.
And actually, the IRP, I think, is a great place because that's the resource plan that you're gonna try to figure out. So that's a great place to do it.
Yep.
But I guess, hopefully I can say this, it's just, it relates to it, is that we did see the solar contract that I'm assuming was signed, it was last July, right? That the solar one that we were getting 5
Yeah, it was
megawatts
quite
for,
a
that was
time
never
ago.
confirmed. But it would be nice to see that again. So either under IRP or under contracts, what is the best way to put it?
Okay.
So whatever agenda item, so we'll talk about that next in the agenda item.
Yeah, and it would probably it would be best to probably bring those together as well, because I would anticipate we'll see the one from SNWA in the next couple of months.
Can I offer a suggestion? Let's move to item 7 so we can discuss what we're talking about now.
Yeah, good
because
idea.
this is not part of 6.
No problem. Okay, so we'll close out number 6 and move to number 7 for possible action, discussing the future agenda items. And so just to make sure we get Greg's comments and we get everything totally cleared off right off the top of the bat. So we will be moving, okay, first off though, for future agenda items, so we know what we're doing, let's go ahead and talk about the next 3 months. So we have, like I said in the workshop, I have talked to the mayor and asked that we have a meeting, some type of workshop with the council. And basically, I guess it would be, so everybody understands, it would be whatever council, it could be whatever council council persons are available. So we don't really know what next meeting exactly is gonna look like, if I'm understanding correctly. And then you said in July, Dennis is gonna be gone, and so he was hoping to move that to a different week. And so do you happen to have the schedule, or do you have to get that out to us to know what
We'll have to
rooms
get
are
that
available?
out just because and we know our first Wednesday doesn't conflict, but, we're not positive on the other dates, so we'll send out some dates, to the committee.
Okay. And then you're saying that they're working on this in August, so we're looking at
Right.
going dark in,
So August we would be, so they start after the one meeting in July, they're gonna start the renovation on this, and then, it won't be available for the first meeting in August.
so we've only probably got the first week or two. Well, are you gone the full week of July? Is that what?
Yes,
So you'd be the
Yeah,
second
the
week, and then we
holiday.
gotta figure out when they're gonna start renovating this.
yeah,
So we might not have that big of a window.
right.
It might be one date or something, okay. So if we did a workshop,
Suggestion,
go ahead.
don't we have a smaller conference room in the building? We don't need this unless we have to have the recording availability.
We got recording issues. Lisa, is that what you're gonna state?
We do have a recording issue,
Yep.
the current coded, directives, even though we are going to be opening up it, the current directives are that we are supposed to be streaming all of our meetings, so that would be the hiccup there. The council chambers are going to be closed from approximately the 14th of July after the, council meeting, the first council meeting of the month, until approximately August 7th or 8th, we're not really sure. We're just waiting for, a few more details on what all is going to be done.
But I guess it is safer to go ahead and try not, instead of trying to schedule a meeting in August, leaving that way if they go long, it's not, we don't have to worry about rescheduling
Right.
again. So, and so since we aren't, any major deadlines, we've still got plenty of things we're trying to do, but no major deadlines, then I guess that would be good to go. So what my situation is, and I don't know, I guess like I said, we could put two agendas together. We can have a workshop, or what we could do, I guess, is if we go ahead and schedule, because we had talked about that before, is schedule, first off, we have to get the approval that the 4 existing members are active until voted on. So if they get voted on early, great. If they're not, you're still active.
Yeah.
So we,
I suspect the answer is, that is the answer, they're still active, but we need to verify that, because I know in certain cases they haven't been able to find volunteers and they've had to keep operating.
but if you get it,
But, yeah,
but you're
we'll
gonna
do-
put it on the agenda for the 25th, and I think that's
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
good too.
we'll do that for sure, just to make sure that placeholder's there.
And then you guys they'll have to you guys have to get your email back as soon as possible then. So hopefully that gets the email to you and email back, so that can be, worked out. So we could just have a workshop on the 2nd like we did today. And then, since the workshop shouldn't necessarily we could possibly start the regular meeting, so we could have a 3-hour from 1 to, if we start 1 to 4:30, so 3 to half, and then we'd start the regular meeting at 5. So if we could get the, council, then we could just interject that workshop into the workshop. And then we'd have a regular meeting from 5 to hopefully maybe 2 or 3 hours max.
And I guess, yeah, and that makes sense. The one question I have is, we'll have 2 of the council members leaving 1st of July and 2 new ones coming in. So which makes more sense, having the joint workshop in June or having it in July/August?
But when I talked to the
And if they have a preference, then that's
mayor, it
fine.
was sounding like he was gonna put it out there, so if the current council people, one thing is gives us a chance, easier chance to thank them for their support,
Sure.
that they've helped us with, and it just gives them a last chance for feedback too. And with this rate issue, I think we're gonna need both. It wouldn't hurt to have both, because get their input, and then the new council also. We're gonna have plenty on this rate study from what I can see.
Right, and that's what I'm thinking. You're gonna have 2 probably regardless.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why, I would like to see the current council be available if possible. And that way, we'd have to be in the first part of I've got a family obligation in the latter part of June. So I really need to push for, the first part of first 2 weeks. So if we can get it on the 2nd, that's fantastic. If not, then are people flexible on the first 2 weeks of June, or? Okay, well, if we can get a quorum, so Ned, Greg, are you available first 2 weeks?
I don't, it doesn't look like I am.
No, I said, I understand, so I appreciate that. I was just, did I say Ned? Greg, sorry, sorry.
We're twins, we're look, we've got the same color shirts. The big problem is that with the vote and my term expiring, I wanna get that settled out before I commit to anything.
Well, yes, I am understanding, but I'm saying if you're still active, June, I think, is an important time to do. If we can't get something to happen in July or August, that I understand, but I'd like to have the opportunity to meet at least in June. If you're legally still active, I would like for you to attend if possible.
Why don't we take as a committee right now, for possible action, discuss the future agenda items for the meeting in June only? Okay, because that's as far out as we can plan. If July and August, if they're gonna go dark in the halls, the chambers, we can't meet. Now you're talking, 4 months out. I think if we move for possible action, approval of minutes for 3 meetings that we're talking about right now, to the June 2nd, we'll call it, just for argument's sake, and we bring back up some of these other topics, we're gonna have a full plate.
No, we are, but if everybody agrees, but if we do a workshop, we still have to have a regular meeting. And so I guess, so maybe we just say we're gonna have a regular meeting. So if the council can't meet, we're gonna meet on the 2nd, and we'll do a workshop and then a regular meeting. But instead of going longer, we'll do we'll start at 5 instead of 6 for the regular meeting, is my suggestion. Will that work?
I don't see a problem with it, but we ran into almost 5:45 tonight with our workshop. I don't think jamming the meeting to the formal meeting to 5 o'clock is gonna be something that we can actually do. I just looking at the plate full of stuff we got for the workshop and, how it ran this time. So I think like you're talking about, we've got certain homework assignments that have to be done. So that might run long and topic of discussion on our workshop. But then we've got all this housekeeping stuff we have to clean up, that we got admonished on tonight.
Yeah, no, that's not a problem. So I agree. I'm just trying to give everybody a break. I'm just trying to work with everybody's schedules the best as I can. I'm used to late meetings and it's not as much of a problem, but I'm just trying to make sure I'm trying to work with everybody else. So if everybody else is agreeable with that, then I'd say we do the same thing we did tonight and realize that it might be a little bit longer in the regular meeting. So if we went from 1 to 5:30, 5:40, then the next meeting would start at 6, and then we would do our best to keep it reasonable, but realizing it's not gonna be an hour. It's gonna be probably 2.5 for the regular meeting.
We can cut the workshop loose an hour early, see, and then go have something to eat for dinner.
Yeah, if that works. If we get done, we could do that. So, okay, so we could do that. If we can get through it. So on that term then, do we want do you just want to wait till September for yours, George? Is that too late for you, for your data outline?
Yeah, no, there's no urgency with that. I can do it whenever, assuming they even renew me. But yeah, I'm up for doing it.
Okay.
Whenever you want.
Well, if you want to start it, because you were going to share it with Greg and I, and if you want to start it early, but we can start reviewing it and start working on it, but we can, I think September is the safer bet.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for asking though, yeah.
Okay, so then, so for the workshop, I would say the rate study, water conservation, and IRP, would that be what we're doing? Does that sound feasible? That's three. Do we want just three, or do we want a fourth? And then for the regular meeting, then we would have the minutes from March 29th, April 7th, and then I guess if the minutes are available for this meeting, you add them. If they're not, they're not. But we do have to get, and we have to have number 2. So, Dennis, did you have an idea did you quite get the best the terminology for number 2? I'm not sure I got that down right. What was the best change for that? What was the best word?
Yeah, I got that. So we'll draft that up, run it by the attorney's office, but it's just the specificity of the motion that's intended to be made.
Well, do you mind sharing it just so the rest of?
So, I think there's options there. It depends on what the committee wants to call it, but if it's a recommendation or the approval of a report or something, because I think we're gonna run all of these through the attorney's office. So if the committee so regardless of the agenda item moving forward, if it's the approval of a report, it's gonna be very clear that it's the approval instead of it may say for possible action, but then the agenda item is going to say for approval of a report to city council for whatever report it is. If it's recommendations that are being made, but not necessarily a report from the committee, then we'll call them recommendations very clearly. And it could be a report and recommendations, and we'll specify that.
But in this case, we're really not recommending anything. We're asking for approval to send the committee agrees that the report, the majority of the committee agrees the report should be sent to council.
To council, right. So I would think it would just be approval of the report to send to council.
To send to council.
Yeah.
Okay. So
for that specific item.
Yeah, so I think the one thing we can share is so if I start saying something, please shut me down but I believe the biggest issue is, and because it makes sense, is that it's just the agenda needs to be clear that somebody needs to decide if they need to attend or view it or not. So if it's not worded properly, then somebody might say, okay, I don't need to attend, and then something was voted on that they say, well, I didn't understand it was that.
Because we didn't specify what the actual possible action was.
Yeah, so I can understand that, and so, so we just have to be clear on what it is. But I guess I did also understand that we don't say vote, we just say
no, right.
Approval or something. Yeah. And it's not, because we don't have approval rights, so I guess we gotta be careful on that too. We're not approving anything. What we were trying to do was saying that the committee agrees that agrees to it.
Yeah, and we'll make sure we use the right language at the city attorney's office.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and again, you'll be sending, so if you can send that out to everybody.
We'll send them out, draft,
right.
We'll talk to city's attorney's office, and we'll make any revisions and any feedback we get from the committee.
Okay, so
right now I have, just to make sure, I've got for workshop, water conservation, the rate study, and the IRP, and we'll line those out, adequately and appropriately on the agenda. In the regular meeting, so far I just have the minutes, and then I stopped taking notes, so.
Well, the other thing too, just because I did remember with the
report is the second one.
Right, but the one thing I think we did, you and I both forgot, Dennis, is that if I understand correctly, if we do as we're doing now, where we're discussing things in the workshop, then I think if I understood correctly, if we put in the regular meeting that also indicate that either it's part of the workshop packet or we bring it forward twice, or we just say, as was discussed in the workshop or something.
Yeah,
So I
it's
think I
it's gotta be
understood that they-
clear for the public, cause if it's not clear, you know, what I understood the city attorney to say is, we just not need to make sure it's clear, or it's, the attachment is on both.
Right.
Because it may be that if they didn't attend the workshop, they weren't privy to that information, and then the committee's taking action on the very next meeting, then it wouldn't be necessarily be clear to the public because they weren't there for the workshop that just happened. So it really comes down more clarity and making sure that attachment is there. Even if it's the exact same attachment, to me, that sounds like the cleanest, safest way to do it.
As long as we don't have to print it out twice, because it just save paper. But we really haven't been doing that in most cases, but just that's something.
We
would
haven't,
be-
I mean, yeah, because if, in theory, if you were having the rate study discussion in the workshop and in the meeting, you'd have to print out all those, so we'll come up with the best way to do that.
Okay, but I guess the reason I brought that up is because you might have to state that, put the workshop in the regular meeting agenda item terminology.
Right,
Because that's one thing I forgot in the beginning. So it's a little more complicated, we just gotta be careful.
yeah.
I applaud the sentiment, but just for the record, and maybe I'm being facile here, but the next council meetings has, for possible action, discussion, update, and city staff direction regarding the city's position on certain bills introduced during the Nevada 2021 legislative session. I mean, how much vaguer can you be than that? So,
It's not that vague, because there's an attachment with it, that goes with that. So even though it sounds vague, there's an attachment that goes with that staff report that outlines all those bills. She just gives a brief report on them. And I
but
don't
wouldn't
think
it be
they
worth
and
mentioning the bills in the agenda? That's kind of what we're discussing. It's independent
You'd
of
have
the
to
packet.
mention that's why there's an attachment with all the bills in them
To the agenda,
to the agenda.
not to the, it's not the packet, it's the,
It's in the staff report as part of the agenda, but each bill that she's gonna give an update on, she's not gonna say it's this bill, this bill, this bill, this bill.
okay.
It shouldn't be it should be in the, supporting document to the council meeting, and it should be about 800 pages. If I remember correctly, I skimmed it the other night.
Okay, I don't want to keep, anyway, yeah.
It's just
Okay.
basically a summary of each Senate bill, and it's probably gonna get shorter, hopefully, as it goes, because the bills that die, she's probably taken out, I don't know, but.
But I guess for a couple meetings, it might not hurt for all of us to do due diligence and look at the packet as soon as we can on Thursday. And if we see anything that stands out, to get back to you as fast as possible, to say, is there any concerns? Because I had wondered about a few things, especially not having the information in the regular meeting, but I assumed it was okay.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm not putting, I'm just saying that, but if we can catch it earlier, then it's a possibility, and if we just sort of look at it. But I guess we need to look at the agenda item, how it's written, and what's in the packet.
And because she said that she was working Fridays and Saturdays, the attorney, if we send this to Josh or Dennis, is it gonna get forwarded to her within a reasonable time? Or are they gonna pick it up on Monday?
I'd assume we'd have to send it directly to her, and if she would be willing to give us email, that's be the question. Or if she's got an email in the
Yeah,
city.
she's got a
that-
city email.
Okay, then maybe that's something you can send to us.
I think the easiest way would be to just copy all of us.
Well, that's great, but
Yeah.
but I'm assuming, and again, so I apologize for saying it wrong. I'm assuming if we send it to you, to either one of you two, it's
We
not
would
gonna
forward it.
automatically gonna go to her. If it's, when you guys aren't there.
Right.
So we send it to you after working hours on Thursday, you two won't see it till Monday, and it's not gonna get forwarded to her until Monday.
I'm usually looking at my emails all the time, but
But that's asking you to do
Well, no,
something all the time.
I'm just asking a realistic question, you know? I mean, sometimes the packet doesn't come out till 5 o'clock Thursday afternoon or evening,
right.
you know, and then I'm not really that keen on getting on the computer 24/7, but when I get around to it, I'll read it.
Yeah.
So that's what happens in my household.
No, that's what's happening too. I was focusing on the report and trying to get everything else squared away for this, so unfortunately the minutes came in towards last. I mean, minutes for me, I didn't get to them as early as I had hoped to, because I was focusing on other things for this meeting. So, I was the same way. Okay, so then to make sure it's clear, then the four from this one is done and it won't be going forward. So the resolutions were complete at this juncture on that one. The terms then I didn't hear any other comments, so we're good with that. Except for that's a major, deliverable that we need to, you're going to do a deliverable, to the existing, the members that, expire on the first, however you wanna say that. And, you'll make sure that a email sent out, and also if they're active or not.
We're gonna have that conversation first thing tomorrow, so
Okay,
as soon as we
great.
have the answer, we'll just email it out to everybody.
Okay, I appreciate it, so just making sure, because that's really important. And then I guess the last thing still, so did we decide it was safer, we still haven't done it, is it safer to put some type of agenda item on to say deliverables so we can talk about it, so we don't get slapped for talking about something that we don't have on the agenda?
Let me follow up with the city attorney's office on that. That one's a little more difficult because there's no specificity, because we don't know exactly what we're talking about, so.
Well,
It's pretty vague, but-
whatever you can word it, all we're doing is we're trying to ask that at the end of the meeting, we recap what we expect to receive within a certain time frame.
So why don't I work with, the clerk's office and the attorney's office, cause they had, it may be as simple as we're taking possible action out, and it's just a discussion item.
Yeah, then, okay,
If
whatever.
there's no action, that'll take care of part of that. The fact that it says there's 4 possible action, it was part of the problem.
Right, yeah, because we don't need to do a motion or anything, all we're doing is asking you,
All
because
we're
right
really
now,
doing is talking about.
whether we can really ask and just confirm what
I think
happened.
what I'd like to do is maybe confirm with if they're comfortable with us combining the last 2 of today's, I call it the George item, and the future agenda item, turn that into one with the correct language that everybody's comfortable with. That's what I'd like to do. Because we always blend that discussion anyways.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that, is everybody clear? The only thing is if we ever to think that we're gonna do a motion on something, then we need to,
Then we would have to, it would have to be defined differently.
define differently,
Yeah.
but, okay, no, I have no problem with that. Okay, so, yeah, so if we do the regular things, and if we missed anything, then please, if you feel that there's something else on the agenda, just, I guess if there's an addition, should we send it back out, send it to you and send it back out to us, or should we just, does everybody trust that we can do an addition and just have it go forward? How does the committee wanna do that? So if somebody sees, okay, they're gonna send us a draft agenda once we get everything done, and so what I'm trying to do is get it out to everybody to say, if somebody sees something, they can then send the draft agenda back to the city and say, can you add this or change this? If it's a change, I don't see a major problem as long as it's vetted. But if it's something's added, is that something that everybody wants to see again, or is it just have the city change it? So we forgot something tonight, and somebody says, hey, this would really be good if we can get it on the next agenda, can we do it?
With regards to what I've seen in the past with at least the city council meetings, if a specific city councilman wants something on the agenda, they can make that request.
I don't have a problem, I'm just wanna make sure what the
So
comfort level of the committee is.
I would assume it'd be the same for this committee.
I'd like to see what's going on, because the more transparency there is, the more easier it is to do business. So if people wanna, if that's an option, if it's not an option, fair enough. But if you're asking whether I'd like to see a yes.
So I guess if you look at it and then there's turnaround time, then I guess if you can turn it back around, that would be appreciated. If there's not turnaround time, then,
Then you'll see it when it's posted.
yeah, so does that sound reasonable? Okay, thank you. Anything else then? The pumpkin hour has gotten here, so I will make a motion to adjourn. Oh, nope, we got public comment. So, sorry about that. It's pumpkin hour, but not quite yet. So again, the last public comment, the call-in number 702-589-9629. Okay, again, the number is 702-589-9629. Hearing no comments, then I will motion to adjourn for the night. All in favor? All right. Okay, so I see that it's it'll be adjourned at 7:35. I guess I'm even getting punched.